Welcome back, you guys. This is the Art School Graduate Podcast, and today my guest is someone whose work is busting full of joy, love, color, characters, literally. My guest today is DeAndra Hodge. How are you doing, DeAndra?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
No
How are you?
problem. I'm doing well. We were speaking beforehand how I found you, and it was through the Creative South platform. So for the people who may not know you, who are you? What do you do? What is it that you create?
All right. Well, as you mentioned, my name is DeAndra. I'm DeAndra Hodge, and I am an illustrator. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a teacher part-time, and I also like to think of myself as a storyteller, as well as a daydreamer, as well as just an imagination aficionado. I wear a lot of hats, and so I am just someone who likes to create, who likes to make stories and tell stories, and in multiple different ways, whether it's through illustration or through branding or just verbally. That's always been a passion of mine, and I'm really happy that I get to do that for my career.
So out of all those titles, which one feels like you right now in this moment?
Definitely storyteller. I think that's a lot of it just encompasses everything that I do, I think, in a more neat package. Like I said, you know, having to visually storytell through illustration for picture books, or trying to tell the story of a brand through their brand guidelines, and even teaching. I find a lot of times I structure a lot of my lesson plannings with my students around kind of approaching it like I'm telling them the story of like a certain artist that we're going to learn about today, or maybe the story of how this type of art style became very popular. It's very kind of like history based, I think. And even just in my everyday life in like school and whatnot, I was always like a history nerd, which I feel like history is like the storytelling of the world. And so I find I'm really interested in history and historical media. And so I would have to say the storytelling or storyteller is the word that really describes me in this part of my life.
Okay, that's interesting because it's like you have a degree in design, but
Mm.
you love history. So how outside of the storytelling, like what parts of like design played into like your educational influence?
That's a good question. I would say, especially throughout college, I would get a lot of inspiration through a lot of the older sort of like art periods, like Art Deco, art, but Bauhaus. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but things like that, and even just like looking at, I would go as far back as like looking at like ancient times for like different art styles, like Greco-Roman. You have the Greco-Roman period. You have West African art. You have even like Ethiopian art styles, from different periods. And a lot of times I would try to structure my projects around something historical or cultural and kind of challenge myself to like, okay, what are the hallmarks of this art style or this design style that makes it what it is, so that I can capture and recapture that feeling for this design project that I'm doing. So I always use like history as a sort of inspo, like mood board of mine.
Got it. Got it. Now, was it always designed for you? Like when you were in college and in high school, was it always like that design element was there, or was it more of, let me try this?
I would have to say the latter. So I feel growing up, I was always like just saying like, oh, I'll become a doctor or something, because that's just like what everybody wants to hear like their daughter say. And so I would just say like, oh yeah, I'll just become a doctor. It just seemed like the easiest. I won't say the easiest path, but it was like the easiest choice to make in terms of like, oh, this is a career path that is generally favored. And then at some point, I like started falling into like this Tumblr art scene where I would see all these cool artists post their work online, like Pernille Orme and Sylvain Manet from France. And I was so mesmerized by their work. And I'd always loved to draw, but I had never really taken it too seriously. But I started taking it up as a hobby and kind of studying like say animated movies, like their character designs and whatnot, because I was always really interested in drawing in like the way the characters looked in animated films. And I remember in my junior year, I was taking AP chemistry, and the teacher was like, yeah, get ready. You're going to have to take so many more chemistry classes for the next like probably decade. And I was like, I hate this class already. Like, I was not doing great in AP chemistry. I'll just put that out there. Like, I was getting by on that extra 10 points that you get at the end of the year. So I was thinking, I'm like, I really don't want to be a doctor anymore. Like, but I don't know what else to do. And I kept hearing like artist, artist, artist. I want to be an artist. I want to be some kind of artist. And I remember telling my older brother for the first time, and I was like being so vulnerable. I was like, I want to be an artist. And he was like, well, I'm glad you finally figured that out about yourself, because I knew you wanted to be an artist before you even said anything. And so go ahead.
No, no, no. I was gonna say that's an amazing story. You're not. I'm not far from that. I played football growing up my whole life. I went to junior college, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do sports medicine. I was like, yeah, because I'm always in the training room, icing, stretching, rehabbing. I was like, yeah. Took all those science classes? Absolutely not. I was like, I am up 10 hours after practice studying, and I still got a C minus on that test. No, I'm not doing this. I'm so sorry. I took my big butt right over to the art department, and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So trust me, you're not alone in that journey.
Yeah. And like I remember telling my mom like the same thing, like, oh, I think I want to be an artist. And I remember I drew a comic about this recently. I remember she like stopped cold. She was like, huh? Because my mom did not play about like our education and everything and like us getting a good job. And so she was like, okay, okay, that's fine. Maybe consider like becoming an art teacher or like a graphic designer. You're like graphic design, you should do that. And I was like, I don't really know what that is, but I'll look into it. And so I just applied for the graphic design track at my college, and the rest was history.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that backstory. So you grew up in Alabama, moved to DC. Do any of those, those are kind of like big moves for someone at a young age, or even at for an adult. So did any of those parts of that like upbringing kind of help in that decision? Was it like seeing different parts of the country and seeing different art styles and things like that heavily influence you to be like, okay, yeah, I think I might want to choose this, forgive me, design path.
Definitely, but like kind of in I think a roundabout way. So I mostly grew up in Alabama, but I'm a military kid. So we actually moved around a ton before like settling in Alabama. So my early childhood, because of my parents' jobs, my dad was active duty in the military. My mom was active duty before she had my older brother. We had to pick up and move like every close to like 6 months to a year to a neat military base. I ended up being born out of the country in Germany. And so I think having to move around so much and having to, learn different languages and having to adjust to new schools or new people, new environments all the time has just made it to where I'm so used to having to change my direction on the fly, whether that is in life or like in my artwork and my career. Like if something is like maybe like there's a roadblock or maybe something's not working, it's like, okay, I'm not like married to like this one option. He can shift gears. Like, and that's pretty easy. I think that makes it like really easy. Just like my upbringing has kind of informed a lot of like okay, we can problem solve, we can adjust, and it'll be fine. Because I've had to do that so many times in my life already.
Yeah, you're a perfect designer. Problem solving and adjusting all the time. Yes, you're in the right field. You're in the right field. So during your adolescence, what was your like first creative like obsession? Was it, because I know you said you made a comic. Was it comics or was it anime? What was that first creative obsession that you were like, oh man, this will be so fun to do once I get older?
I definitely think it was comics. I feel like comics and anime kind of came in there at the same time. I just would always be so mesmerized by the art styles, especially because at the time anime was such a different art style from what we were seeing in American animation. And even a lot of the American animation that was out during the time that I was in like my adolescence, like Steven Universe, I think had a huge impact, like Adventure Time. I was always so mesmerized by like, oh, there's such a cohesive art style here, but it all feels like it's so different. It's so new. It fits the tone of the show, and kind of like trying to figure out like how do they achieve this feeling? Like how do they achieve this sort of theme in like what's going like the subject matter of the show, but also reflecting that so effectively with the art style. And so I would pay a lot of attention to that, like, oh, like they use these shapes for these characters, they use these shapes and these colors for these characters, or like you ever notice how the how the mom that is like going to die in the anime always has like that side ponytail. Like I wonder what that's about. Or like why do the smart characters tend to have blue hair? Why do the, like what does that mean? What is that about? And so kind of that would always pique my interest, and I would look into that all the time. Yeah.
So how did you like, and this is just me being an artist myself, how did you like the life drawing classes where you had to do figure drawing and all that? Did you enjoy those?
I did. They really pushed me out of my comfort zone. I think I was actually just recently talking about this with a friend of mine who went to a class for the first time. They're not an artist, but they went for the first time. And I was like, yeah, I remember being kind of frustrated at first because it was a challenge. And it would be challenges like, oh, you have to do this pose in like 5 seconds and then another one in 10 seconds. And it just keeps going and keeps going. Or sometimes the teacher would be like, don't pick up your pencil. Don't look at your paper. Use your left hand instead. Try that out. And I think that
They always do. I hate that.
like you can never get too comfortable. And it's like at first it really drove me crazy. But then it started to become fun. It started making it fun for me to just like, oh, I wonder how much of this I can capture in like 5 seconds. Let's see. Maybe it'll look cool if I try with my left hand. Like I wonder what that would be like. So I really liked it after a
I
while.
I liked figure drawing till this day. I hate drawing hands and feet.
Oh,
I could never do it. Like my brain did not register. It was either too small, it was too my hands were too big. I was just like, what am I but I understood the body because I looked at it. I had a great life drawing teacher that said like, look at it as a shape. Like what is the shoulder like made up as? And I was like, oh, it's a circle. Now what's below that? Is it a circle, an obtuse? Is it a square? Is it a rectangle? I was like, oh, so that helped. But for the life of me, hands and feet out the window, could never do it.
yeah, same. I remember when like the AI art started just like getting popular on Twitter, and they're like, you can always tell because the hands look all messed up, and I was like, uh-oh.
I was going to say, you think that's AI or just a bad artist who just couldn't draw hands and feet?
My stuff, please. I promise it's not AI.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's talk about graduating early and then, jumping into work literally right before the pandemic. How did that shift your creative path? Yeah, I knew everybody takes that deep breath, so it was stressful.
It was so stressful. Like, I always tell people, like, I became an adult at, like, the worst year to start becoming an adult. This way too much change was happening at the same time. Like, I graduated like, a whole semester earlier than I was originally setting out to, which at the time I was bummed because I wasn't graduating with my friends, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, 6 months later. And I started, like, an apprenticeship at a company that I'd interned with for a bit there, and I was sending out my resume all over the place. Like I just need a job. I need any job. I was like at the time waiting tables at Olive Garden on the side. And I did not want to keep doing that. So I was like, I am not going to keep doing this. And so eventually I got a job at an advertising, it was like a political fundraising advertising firm in Washington, DC. Went through the round of interviews. Everything turned out great. They wanted me and I had to move to DC. Again, the moving bit was not the part that I was like, I felt like daunting or anything because I had moved so many times before that I was like, okay, yeah, this is just the next step. It was just like the process of it was really hard because they started like shutting down states for the pandemic. So it's like as soon as I got the job offer, it was like, okay, Alabama's going on lockdown in like a couple weeks. I'm like, I gotta leave now. So I feel like the fact that I was in this new city by myself, all my family and friends are back in Alabama, and I can't even like explore the city really. I can't get to know people because we're having a quarantine because COVID is running rampant at this point. So I kind of retreated a bit. I would spend a lot of time in my tiny studio apartment just watching shows and just like drawing fan art and posting that on the internet. And that's kind of how I think I started kind of getting into this art community on Twitter and seeing these other artists who are kind of at the same level as me, and we would talk all the time about what we loved, what we didn't like, how to do this, how to do that, what brushes we use for this. And I think that started, that was like the kind of the snowball effect of how I kind of started shifting a lot of my focus onto illustration as opposed to design. So I would be like a designer by day, and then I would put on my Batman cape at night, and I was like staying up way too late illustrating characters.
So let's talk about that. You started illustrating characters. Through my research, you bought your first iPad with your first check.
Yep.
How was that feeling? And you downloaded Procreate. How was that feeling when you were able to have this digital platform now to create rather than on paper and pencil?
It was great for so many reasons. One, that was the most amount of money I had ever made in my life. And when I did the math and I was like, oh, wait, I can afford to buy this now and I can still pay my rent and have dinner. And so I purchased it. I purchased it. I got Procreate. And it was like, I was like a kid with a shiny new bike. I was just like fiddling with it. I was trying everything. I was watching tutorials and I was just so enamored with this new way of making art that I had seen so many other people use before. Like, again, when I was exploring Tumblr and like the Tumblr art scene, so many people would use like digital art and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want that. But I feel like I was like one of those kids I'd never wanted to ask my parents for anything too expensive, too many years, like,
Yeah.
together. Oh, I got an Xbox in 2012. I probably shouldn't ask for an expensive iPad. Like, let's wait a little bit. Plus, college is coming up. So
You're like, you know what? I'm good. I can make
yeah,
it.
I can make it with my paper and my pencils. And, even to this day, like there's something so special to me about using my sketchbook. And even back when I was in high school, like I was using my composition notebooks where I was supposed to be taking notes. And I did, but in the margins, I would like, do my thing.
Yeah.
Where it just kind of felt like this whole new avenue of creation. And it really like enforced this idea of like you can create with anything on like anywhere. It could be a napkin, it could be an expensive iPad, it could be like your composition notebook when you're in high school or middle school or something. And I think also the fact that it allowed me to share like an easier avenue to share my work with other people and kind of get to like just learn a lot through just talking to other artists. And it felt very natural, like a natural progression in that way. And so, yeah, it was great. It was the best purchase I ever made.
So I'm curious. You mentioned how you started off with fan art and you were posted on social media. So how did you go from fan art to children's books? like how did that transition happen?
That is a crazy transition, isn't it?
I know. That's how I was when you said it, I was like, well, girl, you doing children's books. You went from anime fan art to children's books.
Well, it all goes back to the pandemic once again. Because, whenever the pandemic happened and it was clear like we're gonna be in our houses for a long time, like a lot of streaming services started putting like shows on their platforms and everything. So like I remember Avatar had got put on Netflix when it wasn't on American Netflix before. And like Static Shock had been put on HBO Max. I think it was HBO Max. They had put that show on there, and I loved that show. That was the only show my older brother, and I could watch.
Agree upon.
Yeah, because when you're 7 years apart, there's very little you agree upon. But that was the one. And so, and then all these other animes that were coming out, like Jujutsu Kaisen. Like I think it was another new season of My Hero Academia, and I like started rewatching that and rewatching a ton of old anime that I used to enjoy as a kid, just for nostalgia's sake, because I was feeling kind of sentimental at the time of like, oh, I'm an adult now. I would kind of like try to capture like my favorite pieces of media in my fan art and share that with, my art friends, which kind of turned I guess it went from me kind of trying to be in like fandom spaces and contributing to that to like finding people who also did art and also did their own fan art about things and just like, kind of pitching different ideas back and forth. Like, oh, what if like this, like what if like Avatar was like set in high school or something? Like, how would I draw that? Like kind of coming up with ideas for that. And because I started getting more of a following through my fan art, because never underestimate the fangirls and fanboys, like just cats in general. Um, that's how I got the attention of who would become my agent, Christy, through the cat agency, because they saw my work all over the place and they were like, "Hey, like you're really good at this art style. Would you consider doing like chapter books or like just like children's books and everything?" And I was like, "Yeah."
So what did that feel like, getting that email?
It felt too good to be true. Oh, yeah, it felt like too good to be true. I wasn't, like, super confident in my art skills at the time. Like, I had, like, a lot of, like, insecurities about it because I knew I was still pretty new and, at least, like, new at this, style of art. And also just, like, the concept of, like, "Oh, someone wants to pay me to do this." Like, I could get paid to do this and specifically do, like, children's books was it was just something that never really, like, crossed my mind, like, fully, like or really that it could happen to me, I guess I'll say. And, again, I was, like, kinda a little suspicious. I'm like, "Is this a scam? Am I getting scammed? Like, am I, like"
Can see that, yep.
Yeah. And so, like, after doing like, talking with my mom, like 'cause I run everything by her and, kinda, like, looking into, like, this company and everything and, like, having a couple chats with Christy face to face as you can get in
Yeah.
2020, through Zoom. That's when I was like, "Okay, this is actually legit, and I could actually do this."
Oh,
And
wow.
it was like it felt like a door was, like, opening of like, "Whoa, I could do so much."
I believe that. I totally believe that.
And it was an amazing feeling. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So once you're in this agency, what was it like? What was it? Was it they gave you a prompt? They kind of gave you free will? What was it like on the first day when they're just like, yeah, we'll pay you to do this, but this is what we need from you first? Were there any like rules and regulations when you first walked? Well, I mean, you first open that email and walk through that door into a book agency.
Yeah, so I think I had to, of course, like, look through the contract and kinda understand, like, oh, like, this is how an agent works, like, you essentially are working as a freelancer, and they get paid a certain percent based on every project that you make, so that's how they get paid. And so kinda understanding, like, that dynamic, understanding, like, that there's, like, a certain rule about how I can't, work on anything children's book or, like, KidLit is what we call it, like, just the umbrella of, like, any book that is, like, for, like, 18 younger.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, like, working on any KidLit project, like, I can't do that, like, unagented, I guess. So, like, if there's a KidLit book project or something, like, that I get offered, I have to, like, run it through my agent and everything. I can't, like, sign on to it, just, like, on my own, which is, like, totally fine because Chrissy does, like, all the stuff I don't want to do, like, the negotiating, the contract writing, the contract will look over, like, "Hey, this looks good to me. Let me know what you think. You want more money? Let me know, I'll get you more money so we can all get more money."
The end goal. Yeah, the end goal. Yeah.
Like, even, like, giving me insights on, like, certain contract clauses that I might not understand so that I can make, like, better informed decisions, or things like royalties. And I think after that, I had to, once I signed, like, that contract and everything, I had to, like, submit my best work for the agency so they could promote my work on their site. Um, because like that is like essentially their job is to kind of promote me to like all these different like publishers and stuff so they can kind of have like a Rolodex, like a digital Rolodex, if you will, of artists that they have that like, oh hey, if you're looking for this art style for this kind of book, we have this person over here that you can look. And if that doesn't satisfy you, here are all these other artists. So there's always options. And so, yeah, so it was, I think right out the gate, I got an email saying like, hey, they want you for, or this publisher, I think it was Scholastic, like wants you for a That Girl Lele book series, and I was like, wait, like that girl Lele, like the little girl was like rapping with her dad or I was like, oh my gosh, like she's so cute, like of course I'll do that, and it's like with Nickelodeon, so I was like, in school, like I used to go to like these book fairs all the time, and so I was super stoked. And I think for that one, I actually got like a brand guideline on top of the prompt, because it was a Nickelodeon. It was like a Nickelodeon project, so I had to make sure I stayed on brand with it. But I also kind of got to see like what the prompts were, like how much I had to illustrate, what exactly I was illustrating, and what I had to depict. So it was a pretty good project. It's kind of like a training wheels sort of thing because it was very like detailed about like this is what we need, this is what you have to draw, and so on and so forth. So
So in the agency, can you come up with your own stories, or does it have to be someone reaches out before you can create anything?
I can create my own stories, but there's like a process where you have to kind of create a pitch essentially, where and it depends on what type of book you want to do. So the graphic novel pitch process is a little different than say the picture book pitch process. Like I think for picture books, you have to basically have like the dummy already created. So the dummy is like it's like a bare bones like sketch like pictures, like kind of think of it as like storyboards for a picture book where like, okay, this is what the illustrations will look like. This is kind of a taste of what the style is going to be.
Okay.
And as well as like the manuscript has to be written and everything. And you basically have to send that dummy into a publisher. And that's kind of like what determines like that. And then after that, there's like a negotiation thing. They have to decide like, oh, we want to go through with this or not. And then for a graphic novel, you have to do like a chapter summary. So you have to write a summary for each chapter. You have to write a little bit of a script for the characters, or like at least a sample script. And then you have to do like a couple sample pages, like finished sample pages, to show kind of like the progression of the story, what the style is going to be, and kind of showing like a pivotal moment in that story and send that in. So,
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So let's talk about your process. You said brainstorming is your legit favorite stage.
yes.
What makes that part so magical for you?
I feel like this is for me, the brainstorming bit is kind of like my version of whatever people feel when they like skydive. Yeah. I get to I just have like like this blank page and I get to decide what styles am I pulling from, what inspiration am I pulling from, what do I get to draw, how do I get to draw it, and I get to experiment the most. And I think that's where the most fun comes in is like, oh, I can try something new or I can kind of go back to this other thing that I've done and kind of see what works and what didn't. And also getting feedback from other people that I'm working on the project with is also a lot of fun. I feel like a lot of people don't enjoy like the kind of like spitballing sessions. You have art director, designer, da 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 da. But I think because I have like the background of being a designer, I am really used to like kind of being in that space and kind of thinking like a designer while I'm starting the illustration process. So like if I'm having to do a cover, like I know already like okay, I need to save like a third of the top or the bottom, like a third of the cover needs to be allocated for some kind of title and like byline and everything. So, and even like knowing how like I need to prep these files to make them optimized for print or something that's something I learned like as a designer. So I can kind of like think ahead a little bit more and it makes the brainstorming process a lot easier because I know like what my parameters are as far as the design process goes. Yeah.
So what does your research look like when you're like visualizing, like we're through the brainstorming, now we're at visualizing. So what does that research process look like? Because I know sometimes you may have something to reference and other times you have to come up with it. So how do you do that? How does that balance work for you?
So it kind of depends on what it is I'm working on. A lot of times I will just use Pinterest. I live and die by Pinterest. It's the best social media app ever out there. Um, I make a lot of like Pinterest boards with like kind of style inspo or subject matter that I can find. I might make like a little deck of like reference images that I think I might need, like certain specific poses. Or sometimes, I am that friend at the function that if I am like, we're hanging out watching a movie, I'm like, hey, can you like pose very specifically so I can take a picture of it? I'm using it for work. Like, not fair. Like, I need like multiple people to be like posed up in this way. Okay, got it. Thank you. Let's go back to the movie.
Yeah.
So like in my own reference photos. Luckily I live in Washington, DC, where there's so many museums. And sometimes I can if like the book that I'm working on is based on a certain thing that I can find in that museum, I'll
Yeah.
just go right to it. Like it's not a museum, but for Yvonne Clark and her engineering spark, like she went to Howard University. So it was nice to kind of get to go to Howard, like to the campus and kind of get to like take pictures of like buildings and everything and kind of put myself in Yvonne's shoes of like, wow, like from Kentucky, I'm coming here to this big school and everything. Um, and so yeah, I feel like especially living in DC, I have a lot of options for where I can draw my inspiration from.
So this part I'm curious about, like, how do you navigate? Well, your book agent probably helps you, but how do you navigate like those legal things, with like referencing buildings or logos or likeness? Like, how do you navigate that? Because it's like you said, you're taking pictures of like certain things. I know some of your friends are probably cool with it, but like when you're in that public space and public domain, like, do you ever run into any issues with that?
Sometimes, for the most part, I've sort of like learned a little bit of like what is and isn't okay to get away with when it comes to like intellectual property. Like for example, if there's like the rule where if you change like at least like 75% of the thing that you took a reference from, then it's technically legally okay to do. And sometimes just like illustrating that thing is considered like, that counts. Like it's just an illustration of this thing. Any kind of branded logo,
Yeah.
don't try it at all. I think this was a thing that came up in the Beyond the Game series because I'm having to draw so many athletes who have like these teams that they're repping that have like our logos and stuff. Like I have to get creative with like, okay, how do I show that this is obviously a Lakers jersey and not show the Lakers logo? And so that you kind of have to play around with like, okay, well, the logo's off limits, but the colors are free reign. Like colors are free reign. And, I think on the cover, I had it to where like there were like lights in the background. So LeBron was like turned a certain way. And he had like the ball kind of covering half of the Lakers logos.
Got it.
And it's like KDR. Like, you only see like half of it. Technically, it doesn't say Lakers, but you can tell it's the Lakers. So sometimes you have to cheat a little bit, you know? Um,
How is it when you're dealing with like illustrating like those public figures like LeBron or say an Obama or an Oprah? Like how is it when it comes to those public figures? Do you have the same like legal loopholes you got to get around, or is it kind of like, well, they're famous, they're a public figure?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it depends. Like, I can't reference certain photos too exactly. Like, I have to change some aspect of it in a certain way. I think we came across that a lot with LeBron. It's because, like, there's so many LeBron images on everything that's, like, really hard to, like, tell what is, like, fair game and what's not. But I think for the most part, I have gotten to the point where, like, I kind of, like, for all these images as, like, references of, like, okay, this is how I draw this person at like every angle and everything. I kind of make my own like turnaround of that person, like just pictures of that person. So it's like, okay, I can see like say Oprah from the front, Oprah from like 3/4, Oprah from the side. Like here's a reference image of that and use that as a way to kind of practice enough their face and everything so that I don't have to rely on copying essentially like a reference image like bar for bar.
Got it.
Yeah, so I can, like, I'm so comfortable drawing LeBron's face. I know way too much about every nook and cranny of that man's face for someone who's never met him, like and, like, draw him in, like, just a made up setting that still conveys, like, what the story's talking about. So yeah,
Okay.
that's usually how I get
I,
around.
I, I was just because it's just like I've always wondered how some of these, because I've seen many I love going to bookstores. Like in LA, where I'm at right now,
Yeah.
they have the last bookstore in downtown. Love it. So it's like you see all these like graphic novels, and I'm like, that looks like, ooh, somebody about to get a check today. I was like, but now that you explained it, okay, it's like I get it. If it looks like you're using kind of like a reference model to go about it. So, okay, I'm curious now about this point too. So you recently demoed drawing Tupac, in your illustrations. When drawing someone that's like iconic and like you said, Tupac, LeBron, like you said, you can draw that man if you've never met him. How
Yeah.
do you decide on what features to like emphasize or exaggerate?
That's a good question. So when it comes to drawing like iconic people, I always say like they're iconic for a reason and you need to figure out what about them is like an iconic look. So for example, for Tupac, I feel like even if you're not capturing his likeness exactly, if you have like, okay, he's obviously bald, he has like maybe his bandana tied up in the front the way or the way that he does sometimes, and like his nose ring and everything. Like even if it's not an exact likeness of Tupac, there's those are like the hallmarks of like, oh, that's like something he would wear. That's like an iconic outfit. Or like is like Selena Quintanilla and like her like iconic like red outfit
Yeah.
and everything. Like there's like certain things that like clothing wise or maybe like just like that they clothing wise or style wise that makes that person like you can tell like that's who it is. Like if I draw a guy with like a white glove, a sparkly white glove,
You know who that is. Yeah.
you know who that is. But getting like more into the features and everything, I think it comes about I figured that out by doing a lot of studies of their face. So in my demo, like there's a part where I actually do just like trace over their face and then move that tracing over to the side so I can see like, okay, what's standing out to me, like in its most basic form. And I believe when I did that with Tupac, like the biggest thing that I noticed was like, oh, he has really big eyes, like really big, really expressive eyes and long eyelashes and really thick eyebrows. And so, and plus like his facial hair, I feel like was very stylized as well. So kind of figuring out like, okay, those are the things I need to really nail in order to capture his likeness. Or like if I were drawing Rihanna, like I feel like her Cupid's bow on her lips, like she has really iconic, like a really iconic lip shape. And if I can capture that regardless if like, her hairstyle is different than it is now, it's like you kind of can tell like, okay, this is who this is supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah. So
So how do you so like when shifting those portions, like you just said, like the eyes, the lips, like how do you shift those portions without while keeping the core identity? Does that make sense?
yeah.
Because it's like you said, you notice he has very big, strong eyes. You notice she has very like cute lips. So like how do you shift those portions to like, but you still keep the core of it to them?
I think a lot of times it's practicing with like simplifying certain shapes in their face or in their body and pushing that as much as you can without it kind of starting to look weird. I don't know if I can explain it very well, but it's like seeing sort of like when I'm like moving that tracing over to the side and I'm looking at like the very bare lines of like, okay, this is the shapes of these things, then that's when I start to kind of play around on a different part of like my page. And I'm like, okay, let's see like how I can make this look more interesting while still keeping the essence of what this shape is. Like as long as it's the same shape and I push it a bit more to make it more stylized, more fun, maybe a little even a bit more exaggerated, then I think I can like nail this likeness. Like I guess it's kind of similar to how when you're watching like a stage play, and there's like dancers on stage, like they're dancing way harder than they look like they are.
Yeah.
Because they have to make those moves readable from like to the people like all the way in the back, like in the balcony and everything. So that's kind of the same concept that I do whenever I'm illustrating like a stylized illustration of a person.
Okay. Because because looking at your work, I was just like, okay, how does she do that? Like, how do you, like, is it more of a line, shape, form type thing first? Or is it just like you use whatever you choose to pick out, either the eyes, the nose, the lips, the ears, you just take it as that?
It's all of that, yeah. So like I look and see like, okay, what about this is like what stands out to me personally, and then like how can I kind of just break it down to its simplest parts so that I can see like how far I can push this, so I can really make it pop. It's a lot of try. So really, it's a lot of trial and error.
So are you using iPad or paper and pencil?
Typically iPad for that part, because then it's easier for me because I don't have like a light box or anything, so or a printer. So, like I just became an adult like 5 years ago. So I'll use like my iPad. I find like an image on like Google Images or something. I put that in my file and then another layer, just like kind of tracing over that and shifting that off to the side and just kind of, and then there's also a really good tool in Procreate where you can like actually put a reference image in to this little like box that's like just kind of off to the side, kind of like a sticky note, if you will. And you can like draw and zoom in and still have your reference image close, like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, like close to you. So like instead of it being like, oh, I put it like directly on the page and I'm having to constantly zoom in and out, so I can like
It
see.
follows you when you zoom in and out. Oh,
Yeah.
that's dope.
So that's also super helpful for this part of the process is like, okay, I have my references and I'm constantly bouncing back and forth.
Okay, that's dope. So this is a question that's kind of going to probably, I don't know, make it easy or hard for you to choose, but Procreate or Adobe Fresco?
Procreate.
Ooh.
I think Procreate is my ride or die. That's my everything. Like if I can marry Procreate, I would. Like I don't think I'm ever gonna give up Procreate. But I do use Adobe Fresco for when I'm illustrating a logo because like you typically though, I still start the sketching process out in Procreate and then I put that into Adobe Fresco because I'm still kind of new at it, but I have used that program as a way to kind of vector draw so that I can draw the logo that I'm making for a client more easily than like putting it into Adobe Illustrator and trying to like use my mouse and everything. It's just like the hand brain connection is a lot better when I use Fresco and it just comes out looking better to me personally. And that way I have this logo that I can just pop in anywhere. I can change the color, I can change the size, and it's not going to pixelate because it's not a rasterized object. It's a
Got
vector.
it.
So
Okay. The only reason I asked is because I spoke with another artist, Alana Flowers, and she was like, "Oh, I'm Team Fresco." She was like, "I loved Procreate, but then once I found Fresco, I was like, oh my God, this is so much fun." So I've been encountering different people who are either Team Procreate or Team Adobe Fresco. So that was just a question I was curious about.
yeah, I think it's because like Alana does like a lot of typography, right? So I can definitely see that. And she's amazing, by the way.
So, which project has stayed with you the most? You've done, let's see, even though you became an adult, like you said, 5 years ago, you've still worked over 10 books. Like you've worked on a number of these like big name projects. So, which project has stayed with you the most?
It's like asking a parent who their favorite
She's got her 10 kids out there. She doesn't know which one to pick.
Oh man, I want to say the Beyond the Game series is such a great project. It's one of my favorites. Again, I love all my children equally, but I think just the fact that the Beyond the Game series is a project where I really kind of started to find my footing when it came to the type of illustration that I want to do, like not just the drawing aspect, but what types of projects do I want to work on. And Andrew Moranis, who's the writer, he is so great at writing really complicated stories and really complicated, hard topics to address, even for adults and addressing it to children in a way where like they understand the gravity of what is going on while also like understanding like cognitively like, oh, this is what's happening. It's not like getting like too it's like getting like I think an appropriate amount of like kind of into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And I think that has also challenged me as like an illustrator with working with this subject matter is like I have to decide like how am I going to illustrate certain really difficult things to bring up to depict like, for example, for the Pat Tillman book, in the third book of the Beyond the Game series, there is like a part where it gets to the part where Pat Tillman learns about 9/11. Like 9/11 happens because this is taking place like in 2001. Like 9/11 happens and Pat Tillman decides he's going to leave the NFL to join the military. And obviously, like I'm not gonna draw like the Twin Towers,
Yeah.
because I don't want my job is like I'm trying to show the like how heavy the situation is, like the emotional depth of what's going on and what people were feeling. Like even though like I was alive during 9/11, but I was like a 2-3-year-old child. So I don't have any personal like emotional connections to it aside of just like the fact that was a very scary thing that happened and the stories that my family have told me about that day. And so I have to kind of in a sense I'm kind of in the shoes of the child in for that particular illustration because I have to showcase like, okay, this is a really scary, like emotionally, like emotional thing that happened in the country that you guys weren't there for, and having to kind of show them that, but also show like the emotion on Pat's face and his wife's face, and to depict like how serious of a situation this was and what a serious decision this was for him to make, like why this was such a big deal without scaring them too much into not wanting to learn more, which is like that's a really difficult line to tell. Line to tell. Even with like my students that I teach and everything, they have questions about things that are excuse me. They have questions about things that are going on like in the world and today and in the past. And I find that like that's maybe the most challenging part is like, okay, I want to answer these questions for you, but like it's really difficult to make something make sense to a child in a way that they really understand, what is like what's happening, what's going on, and like how, and understanding like, what's right and what's wrong, because eventually like they're gonna have to decide that for themselves. But yeah.
So how do you balance the visual storytelling for stories that are like, because with that story, like you said, I think I was a freshman in high school. You were younger. Like, how do you balance like the nonfiction topics, like social justice, engineering, while still making it engaging for kids? Because it's like, I know historical topics kind of gives you a little bit, you know what I mean? It gives you a little bit of room to like move and maneuver through, and like they have kind of like the underlying theme of it. But how do you navigate with like those nonfiction ones where it's like they may not fully comprehend what social justice may be, or understanding what an engineer does exactly? How do you still do that and make it engaging for kids?
It's a really good question. So I think for me, there's like, how there's the whole thing about the inner child, right? I think the fact that when I grew up, like I'm illustrating the books today that I grew up reading, like the types of books I grew up reading as a child. And so I remember being like super engrossed in those topics in nonfiction books in particular, and kind of remembering like, okay, what was it that I was like so eager to learn? Like, what was it that made me so curious about these things? And kind of basing a lot of my illustrations off of that feeling that I had as a child. Like, okay, I want to know like everything about everything. I want it all. Like, I want all of it in front of me. And so I have to kind of toe a line of like, okay, I have to make this like very bright and colorful. I don't have to make it bright and colorful, but I just choose to do it that way. I like making things bright and colorful. I like making things like have a lot of visual interest in it. Like I like for a lot of things to be going on. I like a lot of busy, kind of imaginative illustration, but also grounding it in reality. So I think especially that's kind of where I started playing with that kind of concept with Yvonne Clark and her engineering spark. Because not only am I having to illustrate these like really detailed blueprints of these machines that like actually exist and have
Yeah.
like these parts are not just like made up parts, like they have to be accurate. That was a note from the art directors, like these have to be accurate machines and everything. And also having to kind of think of this concept like, okay, what is a spark? Like like what is her engineering spark supposed to mean thematically. And so the kind of playing into like the theme of the matter, I think is where I kind of get to be a little bit more imaginative,
Okay.
as long as like the nonfiction aspect is the part that is grounded in reality. So, you have these machine objects, but you also see whenever she's like tinkering with these like sparks are going off in her head because she's in her zone, she's in her element. And it's that feeling of when you're doing something you are meant to do. And so that's kind of where those colors and those like that bright imagery starts to come in. And that I think is something that a lot of like the readers can kind of see and visually understand is like, oh, this is her passion. This is her spark. What's my spark? What makes me feel like this?
How do you tap into that childlike mind? Is it like, do you find yourself going out for walks? Do you go to like a bookstore? Do you look up images? Because it seems like you have like a really strong grasp on that. Like when you were saying it in my head, I was visualizing that. You're like the sparks in her head are going off because she's getting these ideas, but she's also working on things. So like, how do you know to visualize that? And are you talking to younger kids? Like, are you going to like, I don't know, schools and preschools or I don't know, like how are you coming up with this? Because it seems very like you're on it. Like you literally described it. I visualized it. So I was like, if I can understand this, I know someone younger can. So how do you do that?
It's honestly a mix of like even before I became a part-time teacher, I have so many younger cousins. I have a huge family. Like my mom is the youngest of 7 children, so I have a ton of cousins. And I am, as like one of the older girls, the designated babysitter for all of the little ones. So I think like babysitting has always been like kind of my main like side hustle as like a teenager. And I really enjoyed the way that kids talk about things. I enjoy like hearing their thoughts. I like hearing their questions because sometimes it's like, wow, I never thought of even asking that question before. Or I remember being that age and like having so many questions like that. And I remember where that comes from. Like, I feel like I still have like this connection with my younger self of like that feeling of like being so amazed by everything in the world and wanting to know more, like always wanting to know more. Cause even as an adult, I'm still always wanting to learn more, always wanting to know more. And so, that feeling has never really left me. But also, I'm really blessed that I have like so many like younger cousins. Shout out Cassie, shout out Major, Nirvana, Gavin, all of y'all. There's too many of y'all to name, but I'll be playing with them and just seeing the kind of things that they're into and either kind of remembering like, oh, I remember feeling like that, or even just like asking them more questions like, oh, why do you like this? Like, what is it about this that, you're so drawn to? And hearing them, I think like them kind of having like, the time with like an adult to really kind of get to talk about like what their interests are and what they want to know, I think is something that's really special for them. Because parents get tired, teachers get tired, like sometimes they don't have to answer every single question. But I remember being that kid that had so many questions, and I will, just sit there and just talk with them. You have a conversation, and I think that definitely like informs like a lot of the way that I go about illustrating is like, knowing how these kids are going to look at these books and what it is that they want to see, what it is they want to learn.
Before.
Mhm.
Okay, that's dope. Because I was like, how do you get into the mind of someone? But now you said you got a whole tribe with you, so it's pretty easy to tap into that. Very easy. Okay, so another part I was curious about is like let's talk about your social presence. Like your Instagram is a vibe. It's bright,
Thank
it's
you.
personal. It's like full. I love the behind the scenes gems. I love that. Like I love sitting there and I'm like, dang, I wish I had time to sit there and do that because it looks like you make it look fun. It doesn't look like daunting or stressful. So it's like, how do you think your social presence played a part in your career?
Oh man. Well, thank you so much about my social media. I work really hard on that. But I think that my social presence has always been it doesn't even feel like it's necessarily a part of like my work in a sense.
Uh,
It kind of just feels like a place where I get to show people what I do. Like like it doesn't feel like content creation for me. Like I'm sure like there are some people out there who probably say like, oh yeah, I'm a content creator. And it's like, yeah, sure, probably like in the bears like bones of that term. But like I never really see it as that. It's just always like it's like the fridge. Like I'm just like putting things up there to show people and like about myself and my artwork and the things that I'm interested in, things that I have going on in my life. Obviously, like a lot of them are very like self promo, like, hey, I have this book coming out on this date by this publisher. Please buy it. Thank you. Bye. But I think like the way that I started on social media with my art is essentially doing that is like just sharing, like, yeah, I made this thing and I want to share it with people who might also like it. Even if no one but like two people like it, I've made two new friends that I can talk to about this thing. Like, oh, you like this? I like this. So, oh, you like to make art? I like making art. Let's be friends. It feels
Yeah.
like very much like kind of back in the sandbox all over again. And and so that's kind of the way I view it is like I just get to use it as a way to get to connect with other people. And I think even more so now, I'm getting connected to people who have questions about what it's like to be an illustrator, a designer, and having questions for me about like, okay, like tell me about your career. Like, how did you get to be like, I want to be like you? And I'm just like, you want to be like me?
I just became an adult 5 years ago. You want to be me? Girl, take it as a compliment because your work is there. It's like I saw it and I was like, damn, like it's dope. Like I'm not even gonna sit here and be like, oh man, I was just no, it's dope. You're there. You're there. So it's warranted. You got the skills right there for that.
Thank you.
So how do you decide what to share and when to share it? Is it just out of curiosity? I know you just said like you have a book coming up, you share it, like it, you guys, please buy it. Or is it more of like, oh, I haven't posted in a while, let me post this? Or do you have like a scheduling, or do you have like does your oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Does your agency say, hey, you haven't posted anything in a while, can you post something? Like, how do you decide what to share and when to share it?
It I totally have a system, it makes 0 sense to anyone else, but I try to post at least 3 times a week, so I try to post on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday,
Okay.
and I try to at least come up with ideas of things that I can post that I I try to stick to that schedule, but I also don't, like, beat myself up if I can't stick to that schedule because I'm very much it has to be like a quality over quantity thing for
Got
me.
it.
So if I have, like, 3 quality things that I can share in the form of a social media post, then by all means, I'm gonna do that. But if I only have 1 good post out, I'm only gonna do 1 good post, and I'll probably drop it on a Wednesday or whenever I just happen to feel like it should go out. When it comes to things, like, it depending on the post, kinda depends on, like, when I'm gonna post it. So if it's like "Oh, I have a book coming out," or, like, we have a reveal, like a cover reveal, or I have this event coming up, like,
Yeah.
that's a lot, that, will determine, like, okay, that's gonna get posted probably sooner than later. If it is, say, like, a trend, uh if it's like an internet trend, then like timeliness kind of comes in where it's like, okay, I gotta post this now because it's trending right now. It's not probably not gonna trend in a week. So I can't like hold on to this. So I'll probably do that. There's like a lot of challenges that go on the internet. Like I guess it's not a challenge, but like KidLit art postcard, like that's like always the first Thursday of every month. So I know about that ahead of time. I usually try to prepare something for that if I can, if I have the time. There are mermaids every May,
Yeah.
Inktober's every October. So like kind of like
Yeah.
bone ahead of time. I plan
Got it.
so far ahead of time that it's like, okay, yeah, I need to make sure I have these things ready. Portfolio day, always have a portfolio day post like in the drafts ready to go because those are things that are going to show up every year, which brings us into holidays as well. Like, I have a couple pieces I can, Juneteenth, for example, just had a book come out called Tell Me About Juneteenth. So every year, going forward, I can share that book in particular, around Juneteenth, or maybe like my Mother's Day comic coming out on Mother's Day, or like my Kwanzaa puzzle that I, was talking about, like, because it's a puzzle, you kind of want to like, or something that you're trying to like, you would like for people to buy, like, you kinda wanna start, maybe at least a month ahead of when it comes out. to tell people about it. But, now I have like a piece that I can share on Kwanzaa or during like the winter holidays. Like I have a Christmas piece I can share. So, that's sort of another way that I sort of decide how I'm going to schedule out my social media posts.
That makes sense. It didn't go over my head. That made sense to me. Hey, trust me. I think I have the same kind of like creative ADHD where it just like it makes sense in my head. I can't tell you right now, but trust the process. So, yeah, exactly. So, let's talk about this jump that you made, which was going freelance. So, what gave you the confidence to fully leave your full-time job and just go 110% into the freelance world?
Mostly youth and delusion. But unbridled youth is, yes. But in all seriousness, I planned ahead like quite a bit with my decision. Leading up to the decision, I was at my graphic design job for about a year and a half at that point, and the job itself, while it was great. I had good pay. I was getting raises and everything.
Yeah.
There were a lot of perks. I had like great coworkers, but there just wasn't a lot of like upward mobility in terms of like you're just kind of an entry level graphic designer for forever. And it's like maybe I want to be like a junior senior graphic designer. Who knows? But also, so if I wanted to like kind of get that to that level, I was gonna have to, leave the company. And I was trying to like find another job in graphic design, and that didn't really work out very well, mainly because it's just the 2021, 2022, like it was really hard to get another job. Like for a lot of people, like the job market was just really bad. Things were super uncertain. And at the same time, I'm like feeling super burnt out, at my job because I'm like doing the same monotonous stuff over and over and over. Yeah. I'm at my desk like from like 9 to 5, and then I, turn off my laptop. I pull out my tablet. I'm working on this book project that I have that's due. And luckily with my agency, like they give you the freedom to be able to choose how many projects you want to work on at one time. It's all depending on like, how much you're able or want to do. So, but even with that, it was like, I'm having to turn down so many cool projects because I just can't do all of these and do my full-time job and have a social life because things are opening up again and I can finally like make friends in this city. Being in for like 2 years. And I'm very like I take a lot of pride in my work, like I don't want to make something for the sake of just getting paid and it suck. And now my aim is on it, like it's gonna be with me forever. Like,
Right.
other people forget about it, I'm gonna remember. And so I was just like thinking like, okay, like what if I just like went freelance full time since it seems like I have all of these like book project offers coming to me and I'm having to turn these things down, but I'm not really having a ton of luck in the job market for graphic design. So it's because the type of design I was doing was super particular and I didn't want to keep doing that one, but my portfolio wasn't really well suited for other types, which is probably also why I was struggling in that vein. And so I would talk to my agent. I'm like coming up with a game plan of like, okay, how do we do this? Like, how am I gonna, you know, really how am I gonna lock in for this? Like how am I gonna make sure that I can do this without like, going hungry or like,
Yeah.
becoming a starving artist, like, and talking to like my design manager who also had a lot of experience as a freelancer and talking to my old teacher, Min Sun Lee, who had a lot of experience as a freelance designer and everything. And just like looking up a ton of YouTube videos. Like I think it was watching a ton of like Anusha Syed's YouTube and just trying to like, get all these gems to try to figure out a plan for myself, like deciding like what kind of artist do I want to be? What books do I want to work on? How do I make my portfolio show that? And, after months of saving up paychecks and kind of making this transition slowly through my website and on my LinkedIn and everything, and telling my agent, like, I need you to like really put my name out there for some projects because I'm quitting my job in like
Oh, wow.
weeks.
Wow.
Um, and I finally left my job. I think it was either April or May of 2022, I think. It feels so long ago. And it was it was like fine at first because like again, I had like so much savings from like my paychecks from my old job. So that was keeping me afloat. I was like having to rebudget everything, like, okay, maybe I can't afford to eat so much Uber Eats, I have to actually go to the places and pick up the orders. Or maybe better yet, I should just like cook my own food. Uh,
Right.
you know, and just like making like little changes like that and kind of trying to see like, okay, what's working, what's not, like how do I adjust on the fly, like I said earlier. Constantly talking to my agent about like, I need at least like one more project. Can I get one more project? And like at that time, like the publishing industry was like it was still pretty good. Lately, the last couple of years, it's been a little slow. So for like that time that I went freelance, it ended up being okay. It was still a little difficult, the first few years is always really hard. But it was like, I guess, like jumping out of an airplane. Like I felt exhilarated, but also like kind of a little bit of trepidation. Like, what am I gonna do if this doesn't work out? And yeah, so it's worked out so far. Um,
What's so I know you probably encountered this, but what is one lesson you had to learn the hard way, but you learned it very early on in your freelancing career?
how not to get scammed. There was a point where, again, because I was super like, I guess the right word is desperate. I was like desperate for like consistent work and everything, and I was still sending out my resumes and stuff for like part-time design work, if I could find that, or even like a part-time teaching position if I could find that. And I think I came across this project where they wanted me to do like some illustrations for like a deck or whatever, like a presentation deck. And it was that scam where he was like, "Oh yeah, like I accidentally sent you too much money. Can you send me
Send
back?"
me back.
Yeah, and that's when I was like, "Christy, what is this? Like what's going?" Like thankfully Christy was able to be like, "Oh no, that's a scam. Cut communication. Like you didn't give him like any of your like bank information or address." I'm like, "No, of course not." And so that was really disheartening because I was like, "Wait, like that money will like it'll like, last me like a couple months. Like I can pay like for this and this that I've been needing to get fixed and all that." And I just like felt really like disheartened. It was like kind of one of those like moments where I'm like, wow, the world is an evil, evil place that would take advantage of me. And so
That's funny.
and so I'm glad that I learned like kind of the red flags of what to look out for when it comes to like a scammy art gig. And thankfully I think I made a post about that, like, hey, like this is what you need to look out for stuff like this. So that other people would know, because I was genuinely I was hurt. I was really hurt. I was like so and shocked that like someone would want to like try to scam me out of money. Like, who am I?
Right. You're like,
You
you
know?
want my money? What?
So yeah, that was
Okay.
a rough one.
Okay. So now this is the quick fire round. You just give me one of the best answers you can come up with. And sometimes I give people a little bit of flexibility because some of them may be a little difficult. So here we go.
Okay.
Dream client or collaboration?
Oh my gosh, Disney, Little Goals specifically, please.
Oh, you thought about that one for a minute. She's like, no, I didn't even finish the sentence. As what do you Disney, sir? Disney. Okay. Favorite brush in Procreate?
The HB pencil, Ride or Die. I have so many copies of that.
Most fun character you've ever drawn?
That girl Lele.
Yeah. Okay. Artistic pet peeve?
Whenever I draw on the wrong layer,
Oh, God.
yeah, and I'm like super far into whatever I'm doing, and it's a whole thing.
They need to do in Procreate, they need to do that. Hey, are you know how that thing used to pop up like, hey, are you saving your work? It needs to be like, hey, are you on the right layer? Like just before so you don't get too far gone. Okay.
That's great. Like
Right. Okay. This one seems like a little thinker, but what's a personality trait that shows up in your artwork?
I think the bright energy. A lot of people tell me that like I have a really sunny personality. And so and just like a love of like bright colors. So I definitely think that that shows up in my artwork, and just like this kind of energy of joy that I try to exude in my everyday life.
See, that was an easy round. See, you thought about these. I could tell she was ready. So so let's talk about a little bit of advice for aspiring artists. So for artists who don't have an agent or industry connection, what's the best way for them to break into publishing?
Well, I definitely think it's a number of things, honestly. Things that I think will help these artists improve their skills and kind of get to know themselves better so that they know what kinds of projects they need to kind of ask for. Um, Definitely like take some time to think about what type of art you like to do because each type of book requires a different style of art. If you do chapter books, you need to know how to do black and white illustrations. If you do picture books, you need to know how to illustrate full scenes of work, like everything. You have to be able to draw like just about a little bit of everything. Um, Different characters of different ages, drawing animals, backgrounds. You can't just draw like a single character with the one solid color background. I know we love doing that, but you gotta push yourself out of that comfort zone. And I think that practicing drawing the kinds of things that you want to draw, like focus on the things you want to draw artwork of. If you don't like drawing bicycles, don't just like put a bunch of like bicycle drawings in your portfolio. If you, because then that's just going to tell the art director, like, oh, this person's really good at drawing bikes. And now don't like getting, RPM, for example, like you're getting like artwork that involves like drawing like bikes or whatever. Put the stuff in your portfolio that you want to actually draw and want to actually do in the style of artwork that you want to do it. And I would also say that it's really important for young artists who want to get into publishing to not just network up, although that is important, but like network across with other people who are in a similar boat as you, because you guys can help each other so much, maybe even more so than like somebody who is like in a higher position as you, which is not to say that like, in the case of me that I won't like, try to help you and everything. But if, like people who are in the same boat as you understand where you're coming from a lot more than like maybe I can in certain situations. Because, for example, a question I get all the time is like, how do you get an agent? And as I kind of like illustrated in like some of these answers here, like I was just posting on social media a lot and I got found by an agent, but that's not the typical way. Like typically illustrators who seek that out, they will take a lot of time to build up their portfolio and do research on the agency itself and try to see like, are they a good match? Like, is my artwork a good match to this agency and the kind of thing that they like to do? Should I like submit my, portfolio, like my little, like, I guess, what do you call it? A cover letter about myself and like wait for a response and everything. I don't really know a ton of what goes into that. But so kind of getting to talk to different artists who are maybe also beginners or maybe just got agented themselves, like can kind of help you learn like, okay, this is how I kind of break into this publishing world. And like I said, like take all the time you can to learn about yourself in the process because learning about not just like, what you like to draw, but how you draw the best. There's so many different avenues for artists, whether you're doing like a digital illustration or collage pieces, or even puppets. Like there are children's book illustrators who make puppets. That is one of them from my agency. Shout out. There's so many different like avenues of like the type of artwork that you can do. You're not limited to a certain specific type. Whatever makes you feel the most fulfilled, whatever brings you the most joy is always going to be acceptable in the publishing industry. And you just need to kind of take the time to figure out like, okay, this is how I am going to do this illustration, these illustrations. This is what I want to do. Because people, when you tell people, whether it's on social media or in a cold email, like this is who I am and this is what I do, it speaks so much louder than like, hey, can you please give me a job or take a chance on me and everything? You have to know yourself, and like know what you're about, and really like, stand on it, like this is my, like, just like any other artist would, like, that is the nature of being an artist, is knowing yourself. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So this question I was holding on to because I was like, I want to know her take on it. What is your take on AI and the Fiverr market for book illustrations and book designers? How do you feel about that?
Well, boo. To start out with, if it's such a cheap, like, kind of cop out for making images for a picture book. I don't think that particularly when it comes to illustration, particularly when it comes to book illustration, I do not believe that a robot can make a good illustration for a picture book. There is a human experience that you have to put into that work. I'm sure you can connect the dots from what I've said before, but like you have to, on some level, being an illustrator, especially an illustrator for children, you have to understand them and you have to understand how they think and how they feel. And you have to be able to put that, like, put those emotions, put those, like, those ideas into an illustration for them. You have to understand who they are. And I just don't think of a robot, like, they might be able to make it look a certain way, but there's no feeling in it. It's lacking something. It's not pushing the boundaries. It can only go so far, and I just don't think that. And then on another level, it's like I just don't think that, like, I don't think kids deserve, like, this, like, am I allowed to cuss on here?
Go for it.
I don't think kids deserve, like, a half-assed, like, illustration or a half-assed project that you're just making to make a buck. All right, like, you're just using this to make money. And it's like, yes, artists, we work for money and everything. We work for a lot of different things, but it's like they don't deserve scraps. I feel like children do not deserve scraps. They deserve so much better, and they deserve for someone to take the time, take, the energy to really delve into the process of creating a book for them. And so AI is never going, like, AI art is never going to be able to replace, picture book illustration. Like, they're never going to be able to replace picture book illustrators. Like, it's one of those things that it requires a human hand.
Yeah, most def. So before we get up out of here, what do you hope young readers and even listeners feel when they see your work?
I hope they feel seen. I put a lot of time and energy in my illustrations to making people feel seen, even if the characters don't look exactly like them or necessarily come from the same background as them. I want for the readers to be able to understand things about the character, things about the story, and connect it to their own life. The same way that I do when I'm illustrating. For Beyond the Game 4, I had to illustrate a powwow scene. I haven't really been to a powwow before. I've seen videos and pictures. I watched a lot of videos and pictures sent to me by the publisher of what a powwow is like. But, in reading the manuscript, I'm understanding, like, okay, this powwow means more to the character Jordan, specifically Jordan Marie brings 3 white horses Whetstone. Like, this was her connecting with her culture after kind of having to leave the reservation that she was from and everything. So after, like, such a long time being away, like, she's getting to be in that space again and be around her community. I don't know exactly, like, what it's like to be at a powwow, but I know what it's like to be at a family reunion with, like, my family and surrounded by, my community and my people and everything. So, grounding the reality of, like, what, a powwow looks like and everything, and how people dance and what instruments they use and what regalia they're wearing is the important part there. But also, like, I have to pour in, my experiences and that are similar. It's a similar feeling and everything. I know that feeling of feeling accepted. And I hope that in doing that, I want, like, other readers and everything to be able to understand that, like, that core element of the work is to feel seen and to feel accepted at the end of the day.
Good, good. And lastly, how can listeners support your journey, follow your latest drops, and just say hello to you?
Definitely. Definitely following me on social media. My Instagram, I think I should remember what all my Instagram handles are, but, like, I'm most active on Instagram, at DeAndra Hodge _. And you can follow my my Substack. I have a Substack. It's called DeAndra's Desk. That's where I share a little bit about projects that I have coming up, little behind the scenes processes that are more in depth than I can really get into on like Twitter or Instagram for the sake of like character limits and everything. Like I really like to delve into like my thought process and what I went through on those projects to kind of help connect to other people who maybe are going through similar things or maybe are wanting to know what it's like to work as an illustrator. And it's just a good way to keep up with like even just different events I have going on here in Washington, D.C. or, you know, other cities potentially. And yeah, I would say just, you know, keeping up with my social media, engaging with my posts, signing up for my newsletter, you know, buying the books from, you know, Barnes and Noble or anywhere books are sold or bookshop.org is always really greatly appreciated. So yeah.
Okay. Well, you guys, thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. I'm your host, Justin Robinson. I had the talented, the skilled, the masterful storyteller, DeAndra Hodge. And this is the Art School Graduate Podcast. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.